All right. Okay, so the first thing actually that I have, hi Chris, good to see you. The first thing that I have on our agenda for today is actually an add-in. It's to get Win up here with us again. And Win has something she wants to plug. I don't know if anyone's going to AAP. Anyone? Yeah, Joanne is. She's waving over there. I don't know if anyone else who has a camera off is going, but Win has a plug for a session going on there. Win, I'll just hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Lee. I'll be very brief, but on the schedule, we have a sustainability symposium, which we're really excited about. It's going to be on Saturday from 9:10 to 10:10 a.m. And we have Drs. Robel and Dr. Shaw are going to be moderating, and then myself, and then one of our anesthesiology colleagues, Elizabeth Hanson, are each giving talks on both kind of perioperative stewardship and reducing waste in the operating room, and then how to optimize anesthetic care as well to reduce environmental impacts. It's a bit of a joint session. But if you're there, we'd love to see you all. And then I'm going to plan to share my slides with this group once they're done otherwise, so that everyone can kind of have the information as well.
Yeah, great. In addition to that, if you're at AAP, there are a couple of other sessions that you might be interested that are kind of geared towards climate advocates. I'll just go over a couple of them with you guys on Friday. Doesn't look like there's anything. On Saturday, there is one 7:30 a.m. That is counseling families to spend time in the great outdoors. And then at 9 o'clock a.m., there is what a talk about unveiling the hidden threat of emerging pollutants and counseling families about PFAS and microplastics. That sounds really interesting. Um, there's a plenary session at 10:30 that may have some climate environmental awareness topics in there. Then at 2 o'clock, there's a talk on how pediatricians can promote time in nature to improve child health, excuse me. And at so that was all Saturday. Moving on to Sunday at 12:30, there is one on nature and child health special interest group networking session. And at 3:30, there is a session on what to know about environmental health and climate change by Lisa Patel. And then moving on to Monday, there is a breakfast, a climate breakfast at 7:30. Of the location is still to be determined as of Mondays. And at 10 o'clock, sorry, 9 o'clock, there is a Council Environmental Health and Climate Change program promoting climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience to your practice and patients. Um, and Another one is at 10 o'clock, there is a global environmental health and the military connected child. And then at 11 o'clock, there is one more on sustainability and the military connected child, a global problem and practical tips. So for those who may be attending, there's a number of sessions, actually, it seems like. Colleen, do you know if there's any more sessions, if I've missed any?
All I know is I think probably everything that you just read off that was like shared on that Council on Environmental Health listserv email. So that's all I'm aware of. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be at the meeting, but it sounds like there's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah. All right, great. And then Wynn's session that she just talked about. All right, perfect. Okay, so our next topic will be that we wanted to talk about. I was really hoping that Mehul could be here um, as well, but we do have Raquel joining us, and Raquel is with the Quality Improvement and Safety Committee at APSA, and Mehul and I think a number of us, actually, I think Colleen, were you also um, had also discussed this and championed it, wanting to do a joint proposal with the Quality Improvement and Safety Committee. And so Raquel and I had sort of like an exploratory meeting over the summer to discuss what we might be able to do and sort of like the outline backbone that we were thinking about doing was something like having a topic or a project that was like a sustainability type of project that our committee would propose and introduce, and then somebody from the Quality Improvement and Safety Committee could then talk about how we could conduct that sort of project, but with attention to like quality metrics and stuff like that. Is that right, Raquel?
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah.
And some of the things we might have already, like based on what the proposal that's being pitched, we might have current abstracts or abstracts that are coming after the call or in previous years that we can then reach out to that author and see if we can collaborate with them.
Yeah, that's right. I think Raquel, you had a number of abstracts that just came to the top of mind while we were talking about it over the summer, and some of the authors may be in this subcommittee, and it may be that some of them are not, and it
Mhm.
would be kind of great actually to reach out to more people. I think Alfred was he one?
Alfred might have been one of them because we remembered the topic, and then you had recalled that Alfred had been one of them. One of them had to do with like utilization of instruments within the OR and preference cards and setups. And I think Alfred was linked to one of those projects that we were talking about.
Yeah, Alfred's project. I think the one that you're talking about, leaning the OR tray. I think that's Anne and Charmy's project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think
Thank
one
you.
of the things that Matt had mentioned that maybe rang kind of allowed you to remember Alfred is that Alfred goes and he takes everything in the OR that's recyclable and he drops it off. Remember that Matt was saying that he's got his minivan and then he just drops it off himself and does all of these initiatives locally on his own with his own time. So there might be an abstract there. So we can always comb through the abstracts that we've had historically. Or if we want to work on something, if this committee has an idea already in mind, we can look and see if anybody from our committee is already working on that.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that was very interesting how Alfred, and actually I think Ramen does this too, have a very kind of grassroots pulling up by bootstraps sort of style of collecting these bags of recyclables and then like themselves moving it to their car and to a recycling or Trex or something where they drop it off. Um, and that sounds very manually labor intensive on their specific part that they put in a lot of effort for that. But it may be also that these are really great potential projects because maybe they haven't thought about quality metrics that could be used to further develop their projects. So like another project, let's say like, Colleen's study on emissions and stuff like that. I feel like Colleen's got a very robust sort of development of metrics, and maybe we wouldn't be able to discover too many additional things, just kind of, putting it out there. But, a project that's very granular, very grassroots, there may be a lot of potential to add to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Just taking a couple notes here so I don't forget to follow up on stuff.
yeah. I think maybe the two of us could follow up with Alfred and Ramen about their projects and see if they have an interest in doing a joint proposal about that. Does anybody else have any other ideas that might segue with this?
The only other thing I was going to say, is the American College of Surgeons is launching a collaborative to try and work on some sustainability stuff, like as a Q, like under the umbrella of QI. Um, and I think there's a lot of overlap with a couple of things that you just said, right? So one of the projects is going to be tray optimiz or instrument tray optimization. I think one is reprocessing. I think the other was anesthetic gases. Um, so I, I just put that out there just from a QI standpoint. Like, I don't know how that would impact what we would think about as, doing for a project, or, do we want to intentionally overlap with them, or do we want to come up with our own sort of freestanding thing, or, just highlight, or if the goal is really to just, Raquel, as you said, like go back through some of the, older abstracts or other abstracts that you've gotten and, highlight and focus on like those people and their specific projects. Just I don't know. I just bring it up more as like a point of discussion really than anything else. But uh, those are, I think, the three things that the ACS program is going to work on.
And I think it's up to us, right? I mean, we could do a combination. We can identify somebody that has already worked on something, but then perhaps we come up with ideas that we have here and have not executed the QI component and are in the process of doing the environmental sustainability part. And what does that look like? And perhaps we have the opportunity to enroll other stakeholders that are interested and might be able to do something in a collaborative fashion. So I think either way, however we want to form that proposal will work.
The other thing that might be interesting to think about, like, do you guys have any specific like QI things that you're focusing on currently?
Yeah, so we have right now, we just had our meeting yesterday. So we have 36 toolkits that we had been working on, but recognizing that it just became a bit too much for the committee to keep up with. And so we actually kind of downsized a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we did was we downsized to focus on certain initiatives that cover NISQIP, cover CSV, and then cover Ped Surgery Library. And within those, there's not a sustainability one per se. There might be projects within them that we can link them to, but we're just using the broader topics. So, for example, we have appendicitis, we have pectus, we have pilonidal, we have trauma, opioid stewardship, antimicrobial stewardship. So we have all of this living in actually a Google Drive. So if you guys just type in APSA toolkit on Google, it'll populate. But we actually intentionally downsized because it just became too much to keep up with something of quality. And so we do have some projects and some toolkits that we work on.
Because I'm wondering, I mean, the other thing that we could think about doing is, like, for example, the thing that comes to mind, I know Lauren Bierman's done a lot of work with YouTube stuff, and I know that overlaps a lot with like the quality collaboratives for CSV. Do we like look at where her, and I think she's doing a lot of it with like Derek Wakeman, right? Like the two of them,
Yeah, yeah,
where their initiative reduces waste and tack on like an environmental component to the project, right? Like, we talk about it
yeah,
in safety, talk about it in length of days or length of stay savings or decreased ER visits, but do we try and augment that by also pointing out the sustainability piece of it? I don't know, and I'm literally like thinking off the top of my head, like it's interesting and I think it's interesting,
sure,
but I guess the question is it necessary, right? Because people are going to be excited about saving money, they're going to be excited about saving days. Does knowing the additional sustainability information sway people to do this? Probably not, right? Like, probably from a quality standpoint, what's going to get them is the cost and the decreased complication or decreased length of stay. But it is an interesting thing to think about as another way to sort of mesh together the work that your committee is doing with our committee.
sure.
Well, one of
And
the
that might
problems,
be,
Colleen, sorry to interrupt, one of the
oh no,
problems
that's good.
we talked, I think, even in the spring going into APSA with Mahula, we were trying to say, like, how do we define the metrics? Like you, me, the six of us here versus this committee. Like, how do we define sustainability metrics? And then more importantly, how do you convince our peers that these are metrics that do matter? Do we do it like you just said? Is it cost? Is it patient outcome? Is it reduction in waste? In tonnage,
Mm-hmm.
CO2? That still I think is kind of like a problem
Right.
for us. But I mean us globally, not us just as a committee. But at the same time, if we, our subcommittee, came up with 3, 4, 5 things that we could incorporate routinely, we might be able to just kind of continue to use that language again with this ongoing advocacy bit about communications and clear messaging.
Mm-hmm.
It might be easier moving forward. Um,
Right. Like, I think you're right. And I guess we would have to decide what we wanted that to be, right? Like, I'm just thinking in terms of like gastrostomy tubes, right? For every G tube that you don't put in, or for every, because I think like that's one of the things that she's pushing is, maybe we don't do as many G tubes in general. Like, you could probably figure out like a raw materials emission for a G tube, right? You're not
right.
going to figure out the manufacture, the sterilization, the shipping, the boxes that everything gets shipped in, but you could just take a single G tube
Mm-hmm.
and weigh it and say, all right, we're going to say this is a mixed use plastics, and just know the raw materials, right? And so even it would be a gross underestimation, but it would at least be something that maybe we, take the same tact for, all of these different things, if that's the thing that makes sense, right? And but again, like to your point, like, does that make sense? And is that the thing that gets people interested, right? Because you could also have the same conversation. Well, every G tube costs $50, except there's like no transparency in costs in healthcare. So I don't know if that's a real number or not, right? But and maybe we just talk about it in cost savings, and like internally we as a group know it's also like an environmental benefit. Like again, like I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that's one of the real struggles, is trying to figure out what's the way to communicate it.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
I think, Colleen, the PSQC G2 study is great. I mean, we talked about it yesterday at our meeting as well. They're really in their infancy because they are still recruiting institutions. They have a call out for people to share their G2 project data from NISQIP, but I don't think they have a lot of data yet. I don't know
To
if it will
to
be
to
available.
eliminate to reduce G2 placements.
No, so right now they're just looking at so their ultimate goal is twofold, right? It's looking at, well, why are we doing upper GIs, right?
Yeah,
And so that's one goal. And then I think Lauren's ultimate goal is she did a study locally in her institution and followed the patients that they had done G tubes in and realized that after about 6 weeks, none of these kids needed that G tube. And so why not just put a feeding tube and send them home till they get better at PO intake. But the pilot study is looking at only NISQIP data right now.
yeah,
And so the NISQIP data is not as granular. So what they're doing is bringing in all the institutions that are willing to volunteer and share their pilot report so that
right.
then they can get some baseline data. So they might not have all the data that we need by the time APSA comes by. But I like the initiative, but you both are correct. Is okay, what's the metric that we're
Yeah.
going to look at?
So Raquel, I see where you're going with that. I was hoping that you were because I was on quality and safety for a few year sessions, transitioning to this committee some time back. There's a lot of overlap. It was kind of fun for a while to see like how it crossed over. The G-tube studies, especially the ones that Derek was doing in Rochester, there was really good because he was really looking at, um, you cost and unnecessary procedures. Um, uh, the same things happen, I guess, obviously in Delaware. The idea of feeding to all of us makes sense. If you can save, general anesthesia, the operation, when you look at it from Colleen's commentary point of view for that thinking, every event, that's where all of those, I guess you could say, sustainability uh, additions, get add up. Um, short of somebody sitting here with like a scorecard, Colleen, and like saying, you save on X-ray, you save on, you know, upper GI and fluoro, et cetera. The one issue we have in our place clearly with doing that is transportation. Patients are always coming back to either a GI clinic or to the emergency department to get their nasogastric tube reinserted, constant. So that there's the other side of that equation,
Sure.
which is, you know, the I don't know. It's that's a tough part of that equation because we would struggle on that point. Um, yeah, it gets really messy in terms of like how do you do the math? The raw materials part obviously is an easy grasp, I guess, a G tube grasp versus an NG tube grasp, but all of the other components, the math is challenging to figure out.
So I think I think us having had this conversation, we've come full circle. And I think rather than tacking sustainability onto QI work, because QI work will show benefits in terms of cost savings and patient outcomes, probably focus more on sustainability efforts in the OR and how we can get those efforts to be tracked like a quality metric, right? Like a KPI, right? Because
Mhm.
I think I think there is an important part of the sustainability piece when it comes to quality, but
Mhm.
it's too variable. People aren't necessarily going to be interested in it, but if you can get them interested in sustainability and then show, hey, this is how you can track it as a quality metric, like maybe that's really more the tack that we need to take. So then that goes back full circle to Linda's original question of what other projects can we work on. Sorry, I feel like I railed us for 15 minutes.
No, because
Okay.
it is confusing because it's either like a top down or a bottom up approach, right?
Right.
So, if you are a single surgeon or a bunch of surgeons in an operating room, and I don't even want to get into like the environment, academic, private, or otherwise, right? But if you're individually gung ho on this topic and move things in that direction, there's a certain benefit that's there. If you're at an institution that is top down sustainability, they're doing a lot, i.e., Boston Medical Center has been doing this for a long time. They make great strides, great progress, noted hospital systems, green, everything. But the place where we're like probably behind is probably like, in the operating room still, not with like anesthetic gases and nitric and so forth, but like on that individual surgeon metric point of view. So when I think about where quality comes into play, I think it is we we kind of touched base with it, I think, at our last meeting where we were providing um, examples to the audience and to the members that came to those sessions where they saw, oh, hey, I could do that. I can use that information that somebody's doing, right? Oh, that's a good project. We could add that project to our already ongoing repertoire, you know? Um, um, it's not the hardcore, run cycles that we like to do, clearly when you were doing quality work, that's for sure. Um, but start.
Yeah. Raquel, do you have like somebody in mind who would be like the representative from your committee who might be able to partner with one of us?
Not at the moment, but we can bring it up at our next meeting in October
Mhm.
and just kind of pitch it. Or Linda, if you want to join us, we know when the meeting is, and if you want to just propose it and we'll get volunteers. That's usually how we do our combined joint sessions and kind of have the committee might have other thoughts that they might want to bring up, and so that might be helpful as well.
Okay. So I guess what we can go from here is, can email Alfred, email Raman. Too bad they weren't able to be on a meeting today. and see if they're interested in exploring more with their sort of individual, I don't want to say pet projects, but you know what I mean, like their individual projects and see if they, it's almost like, do you want to have an ally from QI kind of give a like a coaching, like brainstorming session for you to
Sure.
take your project to the next level? It's almost, you know,
Yeah, and we can do that. We were happy to do that.
okay. And does anybody have any idea when the deadline will be to submit these joint proposals or to
But
submit these
It,
proposals?
it came up the last advocacy committee meeting. I don't think there's a firm date for it yet, but I think it was like guessing that it was going to be like end of November, beginning of December.
yeah, I mean, and that's where it's been historically, like first week of December, that's usually when that call for proposals goes. So I think the advocacy committee is right on track with that.
I getting back to the idea of just like being focused on one thing. I wonder, Linda, and if you want to just say OR trays, right? If you wanted to choose an OR tray project, reduction, minimization, et cetera, that's something that probably you can apply the quality assessment to. And that certainly would hit um, many parts of the sustainability, spectrum.
Hmm.
If we can choose something like that, or if you wanted to choose something like that, um, that might be easy to focus on.
Yeah. That would be Annie's project. And the only reason why I jumped more on Alfred's and Raman's project is because like I know Annie's project had seemed to have a lot of development with it,
Hmm.
and I think I remember when she was talking about it that they did do like cycles going through. So they it seemed like I mean I think it would potentially be a really great idea too. But as far as like building up something new, building up a new project. Um, that was kind of why I was thinking more of Alfred or Ramen. Or, I'm trying to do this one at Mount Sinai with changing the isolation gowns from the disposable to the reusable ones. I haven't put in a thought to like QI metrics that I really ought to too, but that's, for me, I feel like, wow, that would be something that might be really helpful. Um, yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you, Raquel, very much. Did anybody have
Yeah, absolutely.
things to talk about with Raquel while we still have her with us? Okay.
All
All right,
right.
we're
Well,
gonna
Linda,
move on to our next
thanks for
topic.
having me. And then just email me next steps and we'll be happy to take it offline.
All right, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next topic we were talking about, it's only the three of us, is advocacy within APSA. So the first one would be the carbon offset credits. I don't know if we can make much movement on these. We have far less than a quorum right now of our normal group. But last meeting we had a great talk about we had Tracy um, here to talk to us about the carbon offset credits from Katona Climate. It was um, surprisingly not as much money as we thought it would be. Chris, were you here for that talk?
No, I was away.
Okay. It was so she talked about like different projects that we could support and we kept on trying to pin her down to a dollar amount, like how much would it be per person? She looked at the number of people we had at the meeting, about 700 participants, and estimating about 2,000 to 4,000 carbon offsets. So it'd be about $7 per person. We were like, Do we have that number right?" So um, I wanted to just, that was our first introduction to the information and our first time hearing a dollar amount from a consultancy group that actually works on this sort of thing. Um, other things that I learned from her is that when we work with one of these companies, basically we purchase these carbon offset credits, and then they will use the credits and they will retire the credits. And it has to be registered at one of these four major carbon registries, which I did not know that. And you get a certificate back, basically telling you that the credits that you purchased were retired using these particular projects, etc. So I didn't realize that it was actually quite a bit more structured than I expected. Um, so we talked about an opt-in and opt-out option, and we kind of thought more of an opt-in option would be better than an opt-out option. You guys have thoughts about what our next step should be, bringing this potentially to APSA?
Do you
Well,
know?
good.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it would be like I think it was Air Canada, right? It's probably the most. I think anytime you fly, you get the option, certain airlines to do that. So you're basically asking membership to voluntarily, sort of do that, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I guess through, the typical APSA channels, we'd have to sort of set it up and have leadership agree that, we would incorporate this into the meeting registration, I guess, right? Because I don't think it really will cost APSA anything, right? From what you're just saying, it would cost me the $7, right? So
Well, we
that's
have different ways that we could model it.
mhm.
One way could be that the organization pays for it out of their own pocket, but I was thinking, but you guys can feel free to disagree. My thought was more that it would be a part of the registration that the participant would decide whether or not they wanted to offset their carbon emissions.
Hard to go for
Quite
broke
frankly, it would be
all at
Mount
once
Sinai
and
carbon.
have APSA and try to force or expect APSA to do it. If they absolutely did, that'd be great, right? Wow, that's easy. Because then you can advertise and talk about it, and maybe more would do it. Um, but if we did it and it was the first time it was being done at our meeting, then you might get more and more people to do it. You can report on that too, at the meeting and or subsequently thereafter. Um, and then maybe APSA would continue to, you know, invest that in this way.
Yeah, it's almost like voting with your money,
Yeah,
like if we
yeah,
found that, I don't know, 15% of the attendants opted in to offset their carbon emission the first year that we did it.
yeah,
Then the next year it was like 35% of, um, attendants were like, oh yeah, last year there was this, I skipped it. I said no, but now I'm kind of learning more about it. And like,
right,
then it's 30, then, it might build momentum to express to APSA that, the membership is feels that this is important. They're willing to contribute $7
right,
to,
right,
you know, to offset their carbon emissions for the meeting.
right,
And it may be worth it then for APSA to say, okay, well then, APSA will do their offsets from the organization rather than from the membership.
right. I mean, however they, would pay for it or not. It'd probably be better if actually everybody does it individually, kind of really keeps the grassroots part of it open, right? It reminds you to do it. And if you did it, that's great. If APSA sort of just pays for it, it's like your department paying for dues, it's kind of like you don't really feel it, so you're not that invested in it, maybe. On the other hand, if APSA did something equivalent, at a meeting or the meeting, that would be equally powerful, whether it was, you know,
Yeah. And one of the challenges with having the membership do it individually would then be like collecting the money
uh,
because then,
right.
the money needs to be collected from each individual person and then banked somewhere. And
Mhm.
then at the end, and then it has to be accountability for the money that was set aside to buy the carbon offsets. It has to be accounted for. And then at the end of the year, um, ABSA would then have to take that dollar amount approach a company like Katona Climate, I assume,
Yeah.
and say, these are the carbon offsets that we want to purchase. But,
I,
if it's like $15 or something, like two participants, then I don't think they're going to get anybody to work with them.
I think that it would be, I don't think it would be that complicated. I think we'd be able to roll it into the registration,
You're
right?
right.
Yeah.
I think not roll it into the registration where APSA collects the money, but like roll it into the registration such that when you finish paying your APSA dues, you would be taken to the company's website and you would just pay automatically
Oh,
there.
that's a different thing. I didn't think about that.
My guess is that's probably how these companies have it set up. We'd obviously have to talk with whoever we ended up going with, but I would assume that they would then be able to track and tell us how many people from our organization bought an offset, right? We would know because at some point, we would get credit for it as a group, right? So I think the logistics of it would be relatively straightforward. Um, I don't think it would be quite so complicated. I'm eating dinner. I can either leave my camera on if you guys don't watch me eating, or I'll turn it off.
Totally don't mind at all.
um, Linda, what I was thinking is that we've put this rubric together for the transportation or for the meeting site selection. I think, like, have we gotten any more feedback from the leadership as far as like where that stands, or where, like, have they picked a venue for us to like add the venue calculation in?
No, I haven't heard anything more. I'll check in with Ken to see if they have changed the cities because they've done that. Um, or if they've moved on to the next step of looking at the venues.
Because I would almost think like I feel like the fact that APSA is at all considering sustainability in the meeting site selection is like huge, right? And I would almost approach this like stepwise, like let's get that like definitely as like one of their considerations. And then once we show, hey, this is great that you did that. Now that we had the meeting, these are the emissions. The next step is for us to look at mitigating it. And I would make it like each person has the option to buy the offset. And then I think if let's make up a number. Let's say the first year, like 20% buy an offset. All right, great. That's not amazing. Or let's say it's 65%. Then we can turn around to apps and say, okay, sustainability is a priority for the membership. How else can we start to think about ways to do it, right? Like, I don't think we're ever going to get APSA to pay it. And I don't necessarily know that we want to. But if we can show that, like you said, it's like voting with your money, right? Like if a significant enough percentage of the organization votes that this is something that's important, then I think it opens up the door for us to say, okay, like in general, APSA, like we need to clean up our footprint. Like our membership is interested in doing it for the meeting. How are we doing it for the rest of the way we're doing business every day? Or, other ways for us to think about it.
So what I'm hearing, Colleen, is that you're thinking that let's just gather information about the carbon offsets for now, but don't approach the board with the details yet. Let them kind of like figure out what their value, like how much they value the idea of sustainability in site selection. And then after the meeting, um, then talk about carbon offset credits for the next, is that what I'm hearing?
Or maybe not even after the meeting, because I think there would still be plenty of time between now and registration.
Hmm.
Sites picked, I would assume that we could probably move pretty quickly on it. And to be honest, I would also ask Ken, like what he thinks makes the most sense and how's the best way for us to float this as a proposal too, right? With his position on the Board of Governors. And he obviously was super helpful in getting the metric put or the rubric put forward, right? In terms of a possibility, how do we, and I think Ken was on the call when we had the carbon offset person here, right? So he heard,
Yeah, he seemed really interested.
yeah. So I think there's interest. I don't know. I think we just have to like, I think we just need to be thoughtful and like trust me, like I'm in your camp. Like let's go with it. Let's push everything through that we can. But I think we may want to be a little bit more like stepwise in how we go to this group of people that hadn't even thought about sustainability until we started talking about it with.
Yeah. Okay, so let them, so you're saying like let them pick their site. And once they've done that, we can talk to them about the carbon offset. I just want to make sure that we have all of our homework done and all our ducks in a row so that when we get to the point, if we are back at that meeting, that, you know, if they have pertinent questions, we hopefully will be able to answer them. You know, I did think when Tracy was giving her presentation that she had I got the impression that she was saying that the organization would collect the money and then at the end of the year or at some point they would pay for the carbon emission credits based on like however much money they had collected. That's what I had thought the organization would be. So if there was like a way for them to like for us to like directly purchase it from a company and they would be able to track who
Right, right.
purchased it coming from which website because obviously we want to know like how much of our membership um, jumped over and purchased. And I'll have to be honest with you, whenever I jump over to another website, I am not that inclined to like complete that purchase. Like I feel like once I put my credit card number out there, I don't really want to do it again. So if it was me, like if you bundle it all together, it would be like, free shipping, but not really because I know that the shipping cost is already included in the purchase,
Right.
piece of the item. But then if you make me like purchase the item and then go to FedEx to pay for shipping, I'll be like, well, okay. In that sense, it's not such a great example because obviously I have to pay for it if I want the thing. But you know what I mean? Like if I jump to another website and now I like donate money, may not want to do that.
And I may not have heard correctly when she was talking about that. I just know like if the few times I've done it for like an airline,
Yes.
it's with yeah, it's you check the box. I think that you're interested in doing it, and then after you pay for your ticket, then it takes you to their website and you just fill in the rest of the information. So I would assume that the structure is similar. I
Mm.
don't actually know for sure.
Let me check back with Tracy about that. Because I think that's kind of, a different dynamic. And
Uh,
um, just for me, I'd want to know which way it will go. Okay. We don't have Sarah on, so we're going to skip the next talk about the topic about changes at future app site meetings. Did you guys have anything more to say about the selection site rubric or the carbon offset credits?
the only thing, Linda, about the rubric is that I know Ken was like saying, hey, we should think about writing that up as a paper. And I think he's right. I think we'd need to figure out where we want to do it. And I think it's maybe a little bit too soon. But the other thing that I was thinking about doing is submitting this as an abstract for the meeting because we never presented the travel data. We just published the paper.
Hmm.
So I can work on a draft and if nothing else, we can at least share the travel data as like an abstract because we've never done that. And now we have 3 years of data. Plus we have, the winds work with figuring out the central part of the United States.
Yeah. I actually was thinking that too. The only thing that held me back was that we don't have the venue part of, you know, that metric. So, but I mean, I was thinking the community might be interested in hearing about potentially the way we might be selecting locations, and if not, like just having it out there as like a leg to the actual manuscript.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too.
I can work on that because I think like the nuts and bolts of it probably will be the travel data part of it.
Hmm.
Um, and then we can figure out how to tie the rubric in. Like you said, we wouldn't have the site selected, but we could at least like describe the rubric based off of the results from the travel study data.
Hmm. Yeah.
And APSA, I mean, it sounds like Ken was involved obviously at these meetings, but he has reported back that APSA has looked at that rubric or is going to at least entertain looking at it, or I'm sorry
Last
I
month,
missed that.
yeah, yeah. Last month, Colleen and I were able to join the APSA board meeting.
Yeah.
And we presented this rubric to them.
Oh,
And
okay, cool.
at that time, they had three cities that they were actively discussing and like visiting and thinking about what it would look like to have the meeting at these places. And so we took those three cities, ran it through this sort of metric framework thing, putting it through the geological um, center calculation that Colleen was working on with the travel. And through this rubric that scores the each location based on like sustainability,
Yeah.
um, of the city, of the venue, and so forth. And we kind of like gave a score for each of the three cities and told them like which one from a sustainability point of view would potentially be the best option. And then they would put in their consideration for,
At the in real time, what was their response?
Colleen, I mean, Colleen can give your impression too, but I thought they seemed interested in it.
Yeah, I think it was pretty well received. I
I
think
bet. Yeah.
wouldn't be the only, obviously, it wouldn't be the only thing that they would be considering, right? Like it sounds like they were already thinking about looking at like, I can't remember if they specifically said red states, blue states, but I think generally like states that are making policy decisions that are good for children, right? Like support, other factors would go into it, right? So when you think about like ESG type components, like I think they're interested in this. I think they would want to see the results and it would be part of their consideration, but I don't know ultimately what their final
Yeah.
structure would be for picking,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's great because I think that like that whole, like you said, the red state, blue state, and what's going on with children is a real key. And I mean, the last time it was in Florida, I know a lot of people, boycotted. Period. So anyway, but that's good. I'm glad that that happened at that BOG meeting. That's a good opportunity for this committee, subcommittee.
And Tom Tracy, I remember, was very, specifically asked, okay, so according to your work, which city would come up on top? And so it did seem to me like they were interested in finding out like which one we scored the best. If we consider too much about red states and blue states, are we going to be canceled as a part of this like liberal NGO thing that JD Vance is going
It
after?
is a risk, I guess.
Jeez.
Look, I think, this committee or our health policy advocate, everything aside and, whatever, um, I really like, don't get me wrong, I love APSA. I love being part of this communities and so forth, but the powerhouse is really in the AAP. you know, so the more things that we could literally align ourselves with in terms of the AAP, those sessions that you were reading off, for example, you got the sense about like, let's face it, they're pediatricians, man. They got a hell of a lot more time than we do.
And a lot more.
Say again.
There's a lot more of them.
There's a
Yeah.
lot more, and let's face it, there's not a lot of them to begin with, but there's a lot more of them than there are of us, right? There's like 75, the 10,000 of them, 10 times as many. But at the same time, like they've got that machinery that's there. And, I don't want to sound like we shouldn't do it because they're doing it. I just got to say, like, this is where the surgical section, i.e. APSA, of the AAP really needs to like latch on and like ride that coattail, like, no way, you gotta like hang on to that thing like a dog on a bone or something.
Yeah, seriously.
Because I don't know, I don't want to say like we're reinventing the wheel, but well, you guys both are, AAP activities locally in New York and so forth. So you know what's going on there. You're involved in certain things that way. Anyway, and the thing that gets me, of course, was during Tom's presidency. And I mean, I've known Tom for years, right? I mean, I worked for the guy forever. But what got me was that attitude of like, well, tell me, i.e., show us how this is going to affect like surgical children, you know? And that kind of really bugged me. That really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because it kind of gave me the sense that this is where ultimately they will decide the priorities of these kind of activities. So I think every chance we get to do what you just did in that DOG meeting and remind people of like you said, voting with their dollars. I think that's an important way to go about this.
Yeah. And even as, we might try to ride AAP's coattails, I don't know that they are using sustainability for site selection, seeing as they go to the same place every time.
No, no, you might be you might be totally right.
Well, I
No,
mean,
but
I
there
know
is
they need
plenty
a
of
place of certain size and stuff.
yeah. But Colleen knows because it was I think it was part of the it was certainly part of the manuscript and the discussion. But there are a number of organizations that had considered like the virtual alternative to a meeting. You know, now that's kind of boring, but more accepted certainly. But that would be the extreme, right?
Right.
We
So
all
there is data about that extreme, I think. Um, I don't think anybody loves it, but I won't lie. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm not going to AAP or ACS is because my company pulled back. We're losing. We're missing out on a lot more discretionary funding. So, I'm better really picking. Well, not like I have to really pick and choose where I'm going to go, but my the reimbursement for that is really going away, and it's going to come out of my own pockets for sure.
Yeah, ours was cut as well.
Yeah,
Same here.
I don't have anything at AAP this year, so that's why.
yeah. No, it's true. So then all of a sudden, guess what? Sneaking up is that virtual opportunity. All of a sudden again. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe our companies are doing a service for a sustainability push without even recognizing it.
Yeah.
That's a sad state.
Well, it's like during COVID when, all the traffic on the seas and, plane flights, everything went down and there was like a dip, which promptly resurged back once everything opened up. So once the dollars start to flow again, I'm sure, that tide will turn around. I'm going to
But
move
yeah,
on.
we could try to address the issues of all of the great work our colleagues are doing with AI, and then the literal environmental cost of what AI is doing. I mean, yeah, really, who wants to tackle that right now? But that is a giant thing staring us in the face right now.
That's going to be the ultimate limitation of AI is going to
Oh,
be
well, I mean, unless AI figures out how to deal with the carbon footprint of AI, I mean, I don't know who's figuring that problem out, except they're going with way more fossil fuels basically to figure that out. But these massive data centers are a huge sink, absolute huge sink.
It's also an environmental justice issue too. There was an article recently about the Elon Musk's data center being put in like Southwest Memphis, which is like the county in the state with the highest rates of asthma already. It has like 4 times the cancer rate of the rest of the state. And, it's predominantly African American community that like $30,000 a year annually. And, it was put in quote unquote by the letter of the law, but there was no local engagement by the community at all for citing it there. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, you guys, myself, a bunch of others, obviously, we're in blue states and in really deeply blue states in terms of representation. So every time I push my advocacy button, I feel like, okay, I did it, but I know it's not changing anything because I know the outcome is exactly what I want in the
yeah.
first place. So I really don't know how we change that for others. But our colleagues who are in those states, I know, are clearly frustrated. But
Well, it's funny because I was in Missouri before I moved back to New York, and I was like the exact opposite. It's like, all right, I know I voted, but that was pointless.
Yeah, I was going to say I was in Texas before I moved here and I was like, that's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I guess I really have been an East Coast latte sipping snob. Of course, Charlie.
Well, now I'm like pitching money to the like campaigns in Texas that
There you go.
Support that. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, but we're going to skip the next two topics and jump right to survey on parental attitudes. Any updates with that, Colleen?
No, in fact, I saw it on your agenda. I was like, oh shit, I got so thank you. Reminder, but no updates.
Okay.
Well, but here's a related topic, and that's why I really want to stick around to say this. I had mentioned probably the larger meeting, whatever it was, but I'm working here with this politics and health lab here at BU. Really cool. And we have a meeting coming up end of September, beginning of, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's always like my OR dates, but this is really cool because one of the main pillars of this entire lab is about partisanship and healthcare. So similarly related to what I think the project is about, like parental, surveys and sustainability. It's a sort of a much larger topic and umbrella about like how people are making their healthcare decisions and based on really on their partisanship.
Whether they're going to get vaccinated or not.
Oh, everything. You name, choices of, primary care. I mean, men not going to primary care doctors. There's a huge void in men's primary care health because the last time a lot of men actually ever saw a physician was when they were still seeing a pediatrician, for example. This is that same group of men who are all part of that, bro culture and everything else for that matter that are like, drinking the Kool-Aid and eating that soup that we can't talk about now for fear of losing our free speech. But this is a really cool thing that I love being involved in. So one of the things I really wanted to bring to them was this angle of sustainability and the partisanship. Obviously, it's a play on the same words, but I'm gonna pitch it to them anyway to see if there's anybody who will bite and see if there's any takers on looking into that a little more deeply, or at least including it as at least including sustainability and climate activities as a metric of as healthcare contributors. So we'll see.
Cool.
There's a topic for them to look into too.
Yeah. I mean, these guys, these are scientists, right? I mean, this is what they do. They science, they write, and they teach, and they keep doing the same thing. These are professional grant writers. They just love writing grants and not getting funded and writing another one.
I get that.
It is like Churchill definition of failure and moving on. It's unbelievable how people do that, man. So I don't have the skin for it, We get a wound infection and get all upset.
Yeah.
These guys don't get funded by grants 99 times out of 10 or higher, and they're okay with it.
So demoralizing.
Anyway, it's a fun thing to be at least peripherally involved in, given our day jobs.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys, for being here tonight. I'll go ahead and end the meeting.
Always.
A lot of good talk today. I'll send out updates, and I'll follow up with a couple of people, actually. Follow up with Ken, with Tracy over at Katona, and I'll follow up with Raquel as well.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night.
Keep faith.